Good day, retail leaders and partners from Allied Industries. This is Raf Layosa, founder and CEO of Retail Gate Technologies, a proud member of the PRA, and your program partner for Let's Talk Retail, and the CTO of the United Neon Media Group. So, welcome to the PRA's premier podcast, Let's Talk Retail. Now, it has been an amazing journey with you guys, and we hope that we were able to uplift your morale and provide up to date data and strategies to further help you navigate the new normal. Now, despite the fact that we are slowly reopening the economy, serving customers effectively still has its own challenges as we navigate through the current landscape. Now, while businesses continuously create tactics to meet consumer needs, all strategies and efforts must come from a deeper understanding of customers. And that is precisely what we will unpack in this episode as we explore the dilemma of decoding the psychology behind consumer behavior. But before we meet our guest, don't forget to like this video and share with your colleagues if you find this podcast relevant and relatable. Subscribe to this channel and click on the bell button to get notified first. Now, to start the ball rolling, let me introduce to you our guest for this episode. She is a psychologist and the founder of Zana B Psychological Studio, an integrative service provider for consumer and business psychology, as well as mental health and well-being. Her consumer psychology work is based on cognitive behavioral science and focuses on the role of emotions, cognitions, mood, and gender differences, which is vital in shaping and influencing consumer behavior. Now, by exploring the world of psychological secrets to the newly emerging post-pandemic consumer needs and trends, she aims to give insights not just on the rational and emotional approach, but also the conscious and subconscious drivers of human behavior, an imperative knowledge if you want to differentiate your business as a long-term winner. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome on screen Zana Busby. Hi, Zana.
Hello. Hi.
Hi, Zana. Great to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Let's Talk Retail.
Thank you very much for inviting me. My pleasure.
Awesome. And we're very excited. Yes, definitely. While the whole world is still navigating its way out of the impact of the pandemic in the market, the key in business still remains the same. It all starts about serving the customers effectively, and it all boils down to understanding consumer behavior and what really makes the customer decide to buy. So let's jump right into it, Zana. When we think about consumer behavior now, what are the factors that we must be mindful of that actually influence consumer behavior?
Well, there is a combination of factors that can influence consumer behavior, such as psychological, personal, social, cultural factors. If we look at the psychological factors, for example, human behavior is driven by motivation, by our perception, learning, beliefs, our attitudes. And I think people very well know about the Maslow's theory of human motivation or hierarchy of needs, when we tend to satisfy our basic needs first, then we go to the higher level of needs such as safety or self-esteem and self-actualization needs and so on and so forth. Also, if we look at the personal factor or the age, what young people buy now differs from what products and services they're usually, chosen by older people. If we look at lifestyle, then those interests that in their health and well-being will buy products that are along this spectrum and so on and so forth. So all these factors, I would say, play a combined role in how we shop and what we are purchasing and how we behave as consumers.
Yes, that is so true. I mean, from what you just said, that's really a lot of things that we have to always keep in mind and consider. But let's just unpack that further. And you mentioned one factor that's very crucial, especially for businesses, and And that's really about motivation. I mean, when we think of business, we think about selling to consumers, or really driving that consumer behavior. The consumer behavior, of course, that we want is for customers to buy and buy again and be loyal with us, right? So let's zero in on that motivation. That reminds me of a behavior model by BJ Fogg, where behavior is a function of motivation and ability, but it really starts with motivation. So let's unpack motivation, right? When we think of motivation now, Zana, what are the key factors that really, that what we can actually have an influence on in terms of our efforts in communicating with our customers to have to get or at least point them in the right direction in terms of motivation?
Mhm. Well, first of all, you have to understand the psychological workings of your customers. You need to understand what they want, how they feel, what their needs are, and what basically is their main driving force. As I mentioned, the motivation, when we start with the hierarchy of needs, we always start from the bottom. So you can't basically, make your strategy same for consumers, where the ones who need to satisfy their basic needs first, and put the equal same strategy for this customer who wants to be satisfying probably their self-actualization needs, or the needs for belonging, or the needs for to be accepted, in their community, and so on and so forth. So I would say in that respect, definitely first, understand your customer, understand their preferences, understand their desires. If one person is motivated, let's say, by keeping their lifestyle really healthy, okay,
Mm,
another consumer might be motivated by adventure. So you
yes.
can sell sort of either same products, or approach your marketing or advertising strategy, in the same way as you would, with people with different motivational factors and forces. And anyway, if when we are talking about motivation, there are two sort of types of driving forces behind the motivation. Often people
Mm-hmm.
are either getting into action in order to avoid something, or to come closer to something. So if we want to avoid, let's say, pain or deteriorating health, okay, then one consumer may pay attention to their physical activities. They may buy more of healthy food products, organic food, and so on and so forth, just because they want to manage more their, let's say, cardiovascular problem, okay? While the other consumer will maybe go along the same line of, behavior, or shopping sort of preferences, but they will do that because they want to sort of maintain healthy mind and body. So you see, the driving force is different. One is avoidance of pain, and we do that out of fear. The other one is because we want to come to something that we desire.
That's great. I mean, I love how that really touches on the very fundamental principle. You mentioned the Maslow's hierarchy of
Yeah.
needs, and it really starts there. It's very fundamental, and we've all heard of that already. And it really starts with understanding where are our customers relative to that, and it could be a function of those different levels, like what you said. Are they in the disposition to run away for something from something, or actually approach something that's I think that kind of connotes in a way fight, the
Mm,
usual survival instincts, right? Fight, flight, or
yeah.
freeze, right?
Yeah.
But when we think about that now, right, and when we position our brands for our businesses, right, typically, as we know, the higher the or tendency, do correct me if I'm wrong, Zana, but the tendency, or the connotation is, the higher we position ourselves in the hierarchy of needs, the higher the value could be attributed to the brand, right? So how then do we understand where our customers are. What are the practical things that we can take to understand where our customers are, their disposition might be relative to the Maslow's hierarchy of
Mm.
needs, so that we can meet them there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think, as I mentioned earlier, that you need to pay attention. I mean, the brands need to pay attention about the psychological workings, emotional factor that it plays really big role here. So, in order to obtain, deeper insights, okay, I think that's what you're actually asking me. Yeah.
Yes.
Uh, these best insights about your customer can come from asking and understanding what they want, how they feel, and what they need. You need to choose to know them on emotional level. So that's how you can not just organize your strategy, but at the same time, you will offer customer satisfaction and build meaningful relationship with your customers, which is very important. And in almost every industry, interpretation of emotion factor is really imperative for customer retention and business growth. And you can do that, as I said, only when you know your customer. And this is the way to get the insight into your customer. You can, when you have those insights, then you can eliminate the guessing and make, in a sense, more data-driven decisions where you can optimize your business based on those customer needs and those insights. I mean, just as an example, we know how social media is very popular nowadays, and that can be an incredible data source for consumer insights. I think that statistics shows that there are almost or more than 3 billion social users worldwide who can publicly share their loves, their dislikes, what they like, what they don't like, their most immediate desires, and how they feel towards certain products and brands. So I think all that has to be taken into account if you want to know on what level on the hierarchy of needs your customer is. Because, I mean, they will differ, okay? Once you
Mhm.
know your target audience better, then you will easier understand, how to come to this level and get these insights.
I mean, that's very clear. Thanks for that, Zana, because essentially that really is what we need to do to paint a clear picture of the
Mm.
context that could affect the disposition of our customers relative to their
Mm.
position in the hierarchy of needs,
Yes.
right? Now, you touched on social media right there, and as we know, the digital consumer is flooded with countless stimuli right now from different sources, different channels. Um, One person can have residency across multiple devices and multiple platforms, multiple social media channels. Then, how does that affect now consumer behavior, and how should companies respond and even leverage on that?
Well, we can start first with obviously taking into account how the pandemic affected the consumer behavior. We
Mm-hmm.
know that our routines have changed at unprecedented speed and level. How we work, how we shop, how we socialize, how we entertain, or how we look after our well-being will continue to evolve. And
Mm-hmm.
although the many of the long-term changes in consumer behavior are still forming. For the time being, we've seen clearly that people have sort of flocked towards digital buying, although we are yet to see the complete consequences of this global pandemic on many levels. So in any case, we are using
Mm-hmm.
e-commerce much more than before. Our preferences for trusted brands increased, and many consumers at the same time have reduced discretionary spending, regardless of whether that was online or offline. I mean, as an example, I can see in my line of work that as many as 1 in 3 clients now prefer online consultation as opposed to face-to-face pre-pandemic, and that also shows that people are sort of using digital in any way that they can. So I think we can see that increasing, although I cannot say just exactly, in which areas of lives that will sort of increase even much more, or just people will stick to it. But definitely, there are so many people who haven't used digital before, like a large number of baby boomers, compared to Gen Z. Seems that they were not very much attracted to using digital, but nowadays that have changed, and we can see these differences all around the world on global level.
Now we're on the topic of the impact of the pandemic on consumer behavior, right? One of the common themes that we've seen across different speakers, different experts, different articles that have been in research studies that have gone out there since the pandemic hit, was that typically the pattern that we've seen is that the needs suddenly go back to the basics, wherein it's all about that physiological needs and safety, right? And now that the world has shifted into a certain degree, adjusted to what's happening now, what with all the vaccines that have gone out, how have you seen that disposition change over time, and what's the trajectory that you're seeing vis-a-vis that factor from here on?
Okay, what we've were seeing pre-pandemic in respect of consumer behavior, we can say that they were definitely more relaxed, less inhibited about spending, shopping. They shopped globally, and the pandemic has changed that and created new shopping habits. So, as I said, out of sheer necessity, many consumers embrace digital technology for the first time, but there is also a desire to return in-store shopping. So significant number of people are working from home, or they've got hybrid working. So they want products that will make their lifestyles more comfortable. People, I think, are shopping locally. That's another trend. And I think that many consumers will stick to their new shopping habit in the future. Certainly with the vaccination, we are going to see changes, because I don't think that we are going to see that many lockdowns in the future. So the more people are vaccinated, the, I think more easier we can sort of return to what was normal before, although many people will just, stick with their new habits. So it is very much also case of how people are feeling, not just as consumers, but as human beings. So, for example, right now, I've been invited to work on a project in North Macedonia with one very well-known retailer in this location. What actually they want to do, they want to research how the pandemic, not just how the pandemic affected the mental health, but how this actually affected the consumer behavior. So basically finding correlation between mental health and consumer behavior. So I think that is going to be a very interesting project. And certainly when we come to the insights and everything about it, maybe we should talk again and just open a new topic about it.
Yeah, and that is a very exciting research. I'm sure our listeners, our viewers would really love to see the results of that study if that could be released, right? But you touched on something that, and trying to process what you just said and distill it. What I take from that is generally we can segment the market now into three types of consumers. There are those that would still want to go back to the way life was before, in terms of physical shopping. There are those that have adopted going fully digital and want to stay that way, and there might be those who have adopted both lifestyles, going both digital but also still open to going to the physical stores, right? But let's go to the first one right there. Those who want to go back to the physical stores. What is
Yeah.
it about that experience from a psychology perspective? What is it about that experience of going to the physical store and having that touch and feel experience of the products that really drives consumer behavior?
Mhm, mhm. Well, there is some difference between online consumer behavior and one that differs obviously from the traditional retail, which is going to brick and mortar. I would say that that doesn't differ much in respect of what consumers actually want from or expect from retailers and brands. However, there are two distinct differences. Online experience, as a matter of fact, can't involve all five senses, as it is the case with brick and mortar.
Mm-hmm.
But when consumers engage also in comparison shopping, this can be done effortlessly if you are doing that online, because you can jump just from one online shop to another in a matter of seconds, which is not the case with physical stores, where you probably have to, maybe you want to visit a store that is whatever, a mile apart from the store that you are finding yourself at the present, and so on and so forth. But otherwise, I think what every customer more or less wants is whether they shop digitally, online, or in physical store, is the location, convenience, knowledge, whether the store is inviting, and obviously the price. They're all important in both channels of shopping. In respect of physical shopping, it's just different, when you prepare to go for shopping, where you can use, as I said, all your five senses. It's just different experience. It's you can go with friends, you can go with family together, you can have some fun time, and that's just not the case with online shopping, because everything is just it's more sort of a lonely experience. If you want, you do it on your own, whereby with physical shopping is different, and then obviously you can involve yourself in different activities when you go physical shoppings. We know how lately brands have paid even more attention to experiences, so there is this type of experiential shopping, if you want, and you can't really get that into an online store.
That's great. I mean, you really gave more context and insight on that. That simply put, shopping online compared to going to the physical stores can be a lonely experience because you're just doing it on your own. Albeit it could be more efficient. It's really
Yeah.
addressing more on the ability side, but the motivation could have a little lacking factor right there because you're just doing it alone and you're just passing through very quickly with a lot of stimuli coming in all at the same time, right? But let's
Yeah.
think about that
Mm.
right now with the context of more shoppers finding themselves, whether they really like it or not, having to uh, do their shopping digitally. So when we think of shaping consumer behavior, or even influencing motivation, is it is it possible, and what might be the practical steps to actually touch on motivation, or touch on influencing consumer behavior, even in such a physically disconnected realm that is the digital space?
Mm. Mm. So you're asking me if consumer behavior can be changed? How can be changed? How can,
Can we
yeah,
change consumer behavior, even especially more so now online, when you said it
yeah.
right, you can't have you can't stimulate all five senses when it's just online. So
No,
how can businesses
unfortunately,
do that?
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, you can't. At
Mm-mm.
least not yet. Maybe in the future, I don't know.
Yes.
But yeah, when we first of all, when if you want to shape consumer behavior, you have to have an understanding of the types of the behavior consumers usually display, and the 4 or 5 types, of which is one is habitual buying behavior, then you have variety seeking behavior, dissonance reducing behavior, and complex buying behavior. And they're all sort of different. They've got their own characteristics. For example, with complex buying behavior, it's not at all same if you are buying a house or a car. And what we do as consumers, we sort of get engaged in an extended decision making, because it's not same as when we go and do our habitual buying, when we buy cereal or bread and so on and so forth. And also for complex buying behavior, I mean, it's totally different when if you want to buy a house, then it's different to look at the whatever pictures or videos online, as opposed to when you go there, in person. So to shape consumer actions, you must, again, I'm stressing this, I know many times, but that's very important. You need to identify their needs, beliefs, habits, how they perceive your brand, and as you said, motivation. So I think when you put together the emotions, purpose, empathy, relationships, even social media factors, you can get closer to driving behavior change. So you can change, you can shape the behavior, but you need to have these factors in place first. So for example, if we talk about the emotions from a psychological perspective, 95% of most purchases are done emotionally. So you need to trigger positive emotions, you need to satisfy customers' expectations, and at the same time, you have to make sure that also the employees, the staff is positive and they're engaged, so that they can project this into the customers. Or if we talk about purpose, you need to send message why you exist, how you can help, what is your product, and actually how your product can solve, problems, or how they can benefit to consumers' lifestyles. Because nowadays we are not just buying products, but we are also buying purpose, buying vision too. So again, there are statistics that suggest that 90% of customers globally would actually switch brands to one that is more associated with good cause, obviously given similar price and quality. And empathy also. If you don't put yourself in your customer's shoes, then it will be much more difficult to decipher, how they feel and what their needs are. So your brand also has to have a developed, brand emotional intelligence, I would say. I mean, same as a person has emotional intelligence. And if we say that very often consumers are behaving towards brands as if they're a person, so the brands will have personality. And if the brand has a personality, it has to have a developed emotional intelligence and so on and so forth.
That is true. I mean, you hit the nail right on the head right there. But because consumer understanding really starts with empathy, we need to put ourselves in the same in the shoes of our customers, so that we can understand what's going on there, what can motivate them, and how can we really connect with them
Definitely.
effectively. And now, on the note of connecting with our customers, right? And especially considering the digital space, we already touched on how um, touching the senses is more limited now with the digital space. Primarily, it's all visual, right? Probably to some extent, you could also have some auditory stimuli there as well, but you're really missing out on touch and taste as well, right?
And
So
smell.
and smell, yes, definitely. I almost missed that, but thank you for pointing that out. But definitely, those three senses, we're only capturing as much as to a certain extent, only two, or some more often than not, it's just one sense, right? So maybe we could speak to our business owners, or the strategists in terms of communication and trying to connect with customers, and really touching them on a psychological level in terms of motivation. What are the key things that we need to take note of? Is it about the colors, the brightness, or the layout, should it be complex? Should it be simple? Should it be fast moving, slowly moving? What are the things visually that we should take note of and be mindful of to effectively connect with our customers in a and really motivate them well?
Mhm. Yeah, as you said, definitely we cannot use all of the five senses. So what the brands are left to work with is just basically the two senses, visual sense and hearing sense. So in that respect, as long as you make your online store really inviting with good colors that are basically appropriate to what your products and services are. For example, if you sell luxury brands, usually the color that is purple or black suggests luxury. If you sell like health products, then usually the blue color or green color, it's more appropriate. So blends and shades of these colors are more appropriate. And same comes to, you can just use the benefits of color psychology, I would say. Same with sound. You need to think of who your audience is. If you have very young audience, then obviously the sound is going to be very different from older audiences. I mean, if like, for example, I remember how I think it was Hollister, how their physical shops were obviously very much dressed up, and the interior was targeting young audience. When you get into the shop and everything is sort of darkened and there is a loud music and so on and so forth. And I think that's attractive to younger audience, but not to other consumers. But they know what who their consumers are. So same with online shops nowadays. You have to make it flawless in a sense. But what we are expecting with online shops is we want that convenience. We want everything to be fast, to be flawless. We don't want to wait too long, for anything to download, product, picture, whatever. So these are the main things that I think, everybody who wants successful business has to sort of pay attention to.
Yeah, I love that. You said it right, that it's really about creating that experience of efficiency and speed
Mhm.
and it makes it more how should I say, it makes it easier and more convenient, right? That's the right word right there. It's really about convenience for customers when we think of e-commerce or online
Yeah,
shopping, right? But of course, what we always want in businesses is not just for customers to buy once, but we always want to for them to come back, right? For them to come back and buy again until we build
yeah.
loyalty. So let's touch on that, Zana. How let's unpack loyalty. How can we really influence and motivate loyalty in this context now? When we can only touch on mostly visual and perhaps a bit of auditory senses, but how can we, from a psychological perspective, really touch on the loyalty and really build on loyalty of our customers or even nurture that?
Well, think about emotional connections in both physical and digital environments. You need to perform emotional analysis, detect any negative emotions, and with that, you can anticipate customer concerns that you can use further to prioritize your actions and to fulfill customer experiences. So, but with that, you can establish, I would say, more engaged customer base when you identify these points in shopping experience that clients enjoyed most, and that will allow to engage with them and increase their loyalty. Again, as I said, you have to do that not just in your physical store, but also online, whether online or offline. Brands need to deliver on everything that they have promised, and they have to deliver that per high standard, because that's what modern consumers are expecting nowadays. So when you speak regularly to them, that helps strengthen the bond. It helps to develop strong customer relationships. And you need to be consistent with your branding, because there is
Mhm.
nothing more frustrating or confusing if you often change your brand features or brand mood, so to say. That just produces confusion. So I think customer experience and service should be first priority, then sales. And that's how you get repeat customers who are really satisfied. Otherwise, you know what happens, you lose customers.
That is so true. And yes, that is always the most fundamental thing about get satisfying customers. It all boils
Yeah,
down to customer experience, right? But customer experience can have a lot of facets to it, right? It could involve speed, it could involve interaction with our frontliners. It could also boil down to the simple, even the simplest things of how our websites are laid out, the
yeah,
colors, the text, even the down to the choice of words, right? And of course, friction points from end to end in each stage of the transaction. So all these things that need to be considered, what do you think should we really prioritize in shaping customer experience, especially now when direct interaction with our consumers or our shoppers, our customers can be very limited because it's all happening on screen?
well, for starters, I think retailers have to get out of their comfort zone. They need to evolve, they need to innovate, and they need to adapt to the ever-changing consumer behavior. Without constant identification of changing needs of the consumers and offering solutions, and that's basically what consumers are looking for nowadays, you can't maintain strong relationships. So you need to invest in, developing the brand's emotional intelligence again, and consistently try to create these positive customer experiences. Um, Consumers want to engage more with brands who show strong empathy, and definitely empathy comes as a priority after what we've seen was happening during the pandemic and still going on. So when you have strong empathy, develop empathy towards your customers, then you can, I think, better organize the personalized approach towards your customers. And you can offer them better convenience, and basically you can make the shopping experience as stress-free as possible. Um, for example, I just read the other day another research that shows that 90% of customers expect companies now to understand their unique needs and expectations, so that they can craft the personalization appropriately. I mean, even before the pandemic, I think for consumers it was frustrating and annoying if they're bombarded with
Yes.
offers, adverts, stuff like that, which is
Yeah.
doesn't fulfill their needs, or actually it goes against
Hmm.
from what their expectations are or what their needs are. And it's annoying if you're being sent an offer for something that is, let's say, expensive, but you have a low income or you have lost job, as many people, happened to many people during the pandemic. So um, many consumers just don't have the same spending power as they had before the pandemic. So you have to be really careful how you approach personalization in that respect.
That is true. I mean, what you just said, it's all about proper targeting. When we think of personalization, that's essentially trying to hit the segment of one, serving the segment of one, and really make sure that what you're offering is actually relevant to that person, and that person is in the right
Relevance
disposition.
is everything. Yeah, relevance
Yes.
is everything. Otherwise, you're just
Mhm.
shooting in an empty space, and you don't really achieve much success in your business. And actually, it can be detrimental.
Definitely. I mean, if you hit if you miss that mark rather in terms of relevance, and that can really break the brand, right? If you become irrelevant, or if you're giving irrelevant content or irrelevant offers, then people will definitely shy away from you, right? Now, you touched
Yeah.
on the importance of of having that emotional intelligence for our companies, right? And I believe that's where that's a starting point as well in terms of having that empathy, and really and that is actually what will equip our companies, our brands, to actually really be relevant to our customers. So in that context, then what are very practical things that our business leaders can do, they can implement and operationalize in order to increase the emotional intelligence of their companies, and in order to connect effectively with their customers and remain relevant?
Yeah, as I mentioned before, you need to put yourself in your customer's shoes. You need to develop that uh, brand emotional intelligence, which
Mhm.
means that you start from yourself first. Okay, you
Mhm.
start from yourself first. It is, knowing how you are as a brand. Okay,
Yes.
and then you can involve different projects, different trainings for your employees, first of all, or for you as a leader, so that you can start, from that first primary step. Because as long as your employees in your company are really with developed emotional intelligence, then they can use that, and they can change their approach to the consumers. I mean, we know that in a nutshell, emotional intelligence is an ability to recognize your own emotions, to identify them, and then to control them in a positive way, so that you can reduce stress, you can reduce or avoid conflicts with other people, whether they are people, from your family or professional network, work, or even, your customers. Once you start rolling on that action, then you can also identify what the strong traits or strong skills that the brand has, and where the blind points, I should say. And with that, you can be better equipped of how to behave towards your customers. I mean, as a matter of fact, if a customer speaks to a sales representative who has developed emotional intelligence, I
Mhm.
think they're going to be much more sensitive, to the emotion of the customer, whether they talk to them face to face in a physical store, which is
Mhm.
obviously always more easier to
Yes.
recognize the feelings and emotions. But
Mhm.
equally, even if it's online, you can read what the customer is saying. You can recognize their emotions, you can recognize their needs, and you can behave appropriately
Mhm.
towards the needs and feelings of the customer. So you can also respond in a timely manner. You
Mhm.
can recognize the problem, and you can offer solution. I mean, that's what an emotionally intelligent employee will do.
That is
And
so true.
when all of them are trained and they, trained in that respect, because emotional intelligence can be learned and it can be developed,
Mhm.
then that will be much easier for the business to be more successful in building relationship with their customers. And that's one very important point, because if you don't have strong relationship with your target audience, then obviously, that's not good.
That is
That's not
true.
good. Your business will suffer.
And I love that. And it is
It's
very
all about
important.
emotions. It's all about
Yes.
recognizing those emotions. It's all about basically, in a nutshell, because we can talk
Mhm.
about this, 3 days in a row. it's it's about paying attention to your customer. Okay, that's what
Yes.
people want. Okay,
They have to
we
be
want to
heard.
be recognized, we
Yes,
want
they
to
have to be
be
recognized.
respected, we want our
Mhm.
needs to be appreciated and fulfilled. So if you can fulfill my need as a brand, okay, if I consistently have positive customer experience, uh, if you attend, to all of these and you offer me high standards in your approach, where more or less everything is more flawless, it's streamlined, uh, and the bottom line is that as a consumer, I can feel stress-free, then
Mhm.
obviously I will choose you as opposed to, some other brand who doesn't really have all these factors put in place.
I love that. I mean, that really is the bottom line. It's about creating that value for our customers so that they feel valued and therefore we can capture value from them and it becomes a repetitive cycle.
Yeah.
I
I
really
mean,
love that.
everybody is so much more touchy now and more stressed out. Obviously,
Mhm.
we've been what almost 2 years now, year and a half,
Yes.
you know, dealing with this pandemic,
Mhm.
which has changed a lot, as I said, in respect of how we function in our private, professional lives and in any other area of life. So we need to see that brands can offer us some sense of security,
Yes, that I
that
think
they
that's a
care
very
for
powerful
us.
point.
Even if we get into a physical shop, we want to see that we are safe there. Okay. But
Yes.
that doesn't have to be sort of clinical safety so
Mhm.
that you miss out on the entertaining parts of the shop, how inviting the shop is. Okay.
Mhm.
So that's something extra that you need to add to your store in order for consumers to really feel safe, but at the same time to enjoy the whole experience.
I love that. I think that that's what it really is all about right now. Wherein whenever a customer interacts with our brand, whether online or as they enter the store, we put them in that state or we create that experience where they feel that, hey, I'm with this brand and with this brand, I am valued, I am safe, I am cared for. They care for what matters to me. They care for what I care about. Therefore, I can actually have a relationship with that brand.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you said it right there. It's really about that emotion and we want to put them in that emotional state. But one thing that comes to mind about emotions, we hear it said a lot, and maybe you could validate or invalidate this, but many would say that emotions are fleeting, right? They are fleeting, and more often than not it can be a function of our environment, our external stimuli, even the culture, a lot of context that comes into play in shaping our emotions. And as we still find ourselves in a very volatile environment, they even say it's a VUCA world, right? It's a volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous environment. How then can we really leverage and maximize our emotional intelligence in order to respond and adapt in an agile manner to such potentially drastic shifts in the emotions of our consumers?
Yes, as you said, emotions can be triggered from different factors. These factors
Mhm.
can be external, they can be internal factors. Um, the emotions can be different. They go on the spectrum of negative and positive emotions. So the main thing here is to know how to navigate the positive emotions of the
Mhm.
customers. And it is all about having that connection. It's all about having that attraction. It's all about building a strong relationship. And we can learn a lot from the usual relationships, in outside of the relationships forming with consumers and with brands. Uh, there has to be this a sort of emotional attachment that you feel toward a brand. Okay, And that emotional attachment is achieved when you can properly recognize your customer's emotions. So if your customer is upset, let's say they didn't get their delivery on time, but you've promised them that they can have it on time. And then if they're calling to see what's going on, if nobody's picking up the phone, or if they're waiting, long time on, on the phone, or if, whoever talks with them doesn't give them an apology or explanation about the reason why the package hasn't been delivered on time. If they don't offer solution, okay, then obviously, what kind of emotion do you think, the person on the other hand on the phone will have? They will develop negative emotions. Okay,
Definitely.
so you have to be present. First of all, you have to, be really consistent. You have to offer your help. But if that is missing out for whatever reason, at the same time, you have to sort of sense, understand when you have to calm your customer, when you have to steer their frustration towards something that gives resolution to their problem. So basically, the more an organization, I would say, or leaders learn how to manage the emotional intelligence, okay, they can easier manage than the emotions of the customers or even business partners that they're sort of collaborating with. It just gives benefits, in many areas of life.
That is great. I think essentially what we need to do is we
Essentially,
soften.
you need to
Yeah.
develop emotional attachment to your customer. That's
Yes.
essentially in a nutshell.
Yeah, I mean, I love that. I mean, having in a nutshell, it's about having that emotional attachment with customers, and starts even with our frontliners, have developing their
Yeah.
emotional intelligence so that they can be present, they can connect with our customers, and they can also, more importantly, be consistent about it. Thank you
I
so
mean,
much for
it's
that.
all about the
Yeah.
mindset also the
Oh,
company
yes.
has. If the
Mm-hmm.
mindset is towards building strong relationships,
Oh, yes.
relationships that are, customers that are repeating customers, customers who are more loyal, customers who are on your side, then obviously you're going to pay more attention to the customer experience. You're going to
Mm-hmm.
pay more attention to how you care about your customer. You're going to be motivated with that mindset
Mm-hmm.
to learn what motivates your customer in turn. You can be more motivated to learn what they need. You can be more motivated to learn how they feel. And as I said before, all that comes with emotional analysis, which can be performed nowadays, even, with some new technologies, some tools, then that can be interpreted with the help of consumer psychologists. Then, you have these insights, and then you target these insights. Okay, you work with
Yes.
this insight. That's the mindset that says, I'm going to pay attention to my customer first. But if your mindset first is oriented towards sales and how much profit you will
Mm.
make, that will detract you from emotionally driven data, and you will pay attention to, I don't know, all sorts of different insights that um, yeah, on its own won't be enough.
Yeah, I mean, that is very powerful. Like, it really starts with having that mindset of putting the customer first, and then definitely the
Yeah,
sales, the transactions, the profits will follow suit, right? So thank you so
definitely.
much for that, Zana. I mean, this
You're
has been an
welcome.
insightful
Yeah.
discussion, very packed with insights right there. And maybe for the benefit, of course, of our audience here, where can our viewers, our retail leaders and partners from Allied Industries catch more of you, and really learn more from you, Zana?
Well, they can obviously contact me via LinkedIn, on my Twitter account,
Mm-hmm.
or they can just go to janabusby.com, which
Mm-hmm.
is my website, and from there they can find more information and they can connect.
Awesome. And I'm sure we have so much more to learn from you, and many of our viewers would love to connect with you and get more of your insights to really serve their customers better and put their customers first and foremost above anything else. Thank you
Thank you
so much,
very much.
Zana. We've learned so much from you and we're so much better for it. And you definitely given us a
Thank you.
different approach on how businesses should deal with customers. And that's what it's all about. So thank you so much, Zana. And of
Thank you very
course,
much. It
thank you
was
very
my
much,
pleasure
Zana.
talking to you
It was
anytime.
a real pleasure. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Zana.
Thank
All
you.
right, so guys, if you find this podcast interesting and you want to learn more, we have a Let's Talk Retail playlist right on the channel, and you can stream all available videos from there. Again, don't forget to like and subscribe. So there you have it. This is Raf Layosa, founder and CEO of Retailgate Technologies, proud member of the PRA, and your program partner and CTO of the United Neon Media Group. See you on the next PRA Let's Talk Retail. And until then, let's continue to build meaningful relationships. See you then.